This U.S. women's sprinting team is already proving to be one of the deepest and one of the fastest women's teams ever. And just to give an idea of how fast they are, we had 6 women yesterday run under 11 seconds. The 7th place finisher in the Olympic trials ran 11 seconds. So in a lot of countries, that would end up being the fastest woman in the country, where in the U.S., that ends up being number 7. We obviously had Sha'carri Richardson run a 10.7. And then this doesn't even include Jasha Spears, who wasn't able to participate, who ran before Sha'carri ran that 1071 yesterday. She was the fastest woman in the world. She ran 1077. And so just to give an idea of the landscape of what we're looking at here and how fast these women are, it's really an exciting time to be following track and field. We obviously have Sha'carri Richardson, one of the biggest names in track and field and just in sports in general, especially women's sports. And again, she ended up winning this. If you're watching this, I'm sure you know she ran 1071. The main reason that we want to go over this, and we followed Sha'carri, we watched a lot of different videos of her sprinting, and today we want to be able to look at what ends up being her stability leg and her power leg and what ends up being the difference between those two, and then also really get an idea and a good look at her foot contact time to show what ends up allowing her to have the speed that she does. So when we look at this view, we could really see what ends up being much more of the power leg, which is going to be the left leg, we'll say. The power leg, there's not really a specific name. This is a concept that I'm kind of making up for you, but we'll call it a power leg. And then the other leg, which ends up being her stability leg, is going to be the right leg. And the reason I say it's more of the stability leg, we see a lot wider position here. So she does get the knee up, but she's going a lot more out to the side, a lot more on stability. When we get the foot facing out to the side and we get that extra rotation in the hip, what that does is that creates a lot of stability, a lot of control within that leg. And then what that does is that allows that left leg to come up and through and really get a lot of distance. We can see on this leg, she's not as externally rotated. She doesn't turn the foot out as much as she does on the right side. And again, we see a similar situation here with the right. She turns that foot out, she turns that hip out, and therefore she also doesn't get as much distance. She lands a lot more underneath herself here. And then again, with that left leg, really doing a good job of getting and reaching out in front to make it so she's able to generate more and more power and be able to build speed. I think it's important to look at least a little bit here with Tamari Davis and what are some of the things that she does really well as she's coming out of the blocks, because I think in every race here, at least in the semifinals and within the finals, I mean, she does a good job with the reaction time. Obviously, she responded the best, but she consistently did really well within her start. I think she does a really good job of staying forward, right? If we look to see the position, the body angle she gets in, she's staying very forward, very quick with her foot contact time, and she does a really good job of having good low heel recovery, right? So she's not lifting that foot up very high back behind her. As soon as that foot hits the ground, she's transitioning with that heel, getting that foot right back up and through. So she's covering good distance as she is building speed. And I think she does a great job of doing this in every race. She was out in front. She put herself in a great position out of the start. And again, 2 big things that stand out that make it so she's able to accomplish that is, 1, she does a great job of being able to maintain a very forward position within the spine, good forward lean, and she also does a good job with that heel recovery. She's not going and lifting too high with the foot back behind. She does a good job of coming straight forward and through in each one of those steps. And so that's very impressive that she's able to do that. Again, looking at Sha'carri, I think she does a good job of, again, we can see that stability leg turning out, more control, so then she could drive really high up and through within that left leg to make it so she can cover good distance. Now, as we get further into the race, what really stood out to me is when we compare Sha'carri Richardson and Tamari Davis with their running, we could see the positions here. So Sha'carri Richardson is striking the ground, transitioning off the ground, and she just does that so fast, right? And we could see that in terms of right now, Sha'carri Richardson's landing a little bit more, we could say behind, we could say in front, we could say behind, whatever ends up being the case. She is behind in the race at this point. But you could see that what happens here is she eventually, with her foot strike and how fast she is with her foot strike, she eventually catches up to Tamari Davis and ends up landing at the same time. So again, here we could see Tamari Davis is landing and then Sha'carri Richardson's landing. And then we could still see same type of thing. Now at that point, they're about the same. Right? We could still say Tamari Davis is a little bit out in front with the foot contact, but Sha'carri Richardson gets off the ground about the same time, and now she's striking before Tamari Davis just that quickly in one cycle. Now she's out in front. Look how much faster she's getting that foot down and then transitioning off. Okay, and that ends up being the difference when you look to see Sha'carri Richardson when she gets to her top speed. She just spends a lot less time on the ground. Okay, I think that there's a lot of similarities in terms of the time spent off the ground, right? So when the foot leaves the ground into when the foot comes and strikes back down on the ground, obviously she's going to be a little bit faster than Tamari Davis, a little bit faster than Melissa Jefferson. But what really stands out with Sha'carri Richardson is that she's able to have a very fast foot contact time. I know we talked about that a lot, but this is a great opportunity to be able to see the difference there. Now, how does she do it? It has a lot to do with, like we talked about at the beginning, that stability leg and that getting a consistent landing position within that right foot. And then being able to effectively transfer that knee right up and through, that foot right up and through, and then go back and strike the ground with that foot right back underneath. So then she could transition with the heel right back up. And that's what really stands out is she's able to, this angle right here is just such a great angle at being able to get the heel to be able to come up and go off the ground. So being able to generate a lot of power into the ground, but still so quick at being able to get that heel right back up is really what is the key separator. And then being able to stay tall, right? So you kind of see, like with Tamari Davis, because her leg is so much further back behind, that's going to make it so the hips sink. You can't be as tall in that position. You end up having to kind of sink down when you end up having that foot come back so far. So by Sha'carri Richardson keeping that foot close to her hip, close to her body, it allows her to really maximize her height to make it so then she can continue to pick up ground, continue to pick up distance, which makes it so she ends up getting to a higher top speed than women that are typically her size and just women in general, right? She's probably the fastest woman in the world right now. If not, definitely top 3. You could make an argument that Shericka Jackson is, faster than her, but we've seen Sha'carri Richardson beat Shericka Jackson plenty of times. So, it's an argument to say that she is the fastest woman in the world. She obviously ran the fastest time in the world so far this year, and she won the world championships last year. So there's definitely an argument to be made. And a big part of that is she has such a great ability at top speed to be able to minimize foot contact time while being able to simultaneously maximize the force into the ground. And she does that by being able to maintain that good upright position within the hips on each stride, and then being able to build that within that start, I think, is really important. Understanding the concept of that stability leg and the foot that's striking the ground. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. If it does, go ahead and go and subscribe. We really appreciate that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave those down below. We'll go ahead and show some additional videos here that you might be interested in based off of the information from this video. We appreciate you guys watching. We'll talk to you soon.